All right. Hey there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Empire Interviews. This is going to be a great one. I'm excited to be joined by Llyoyd today. We're going to be talking about what happened in Buenos Aires, as well as some of the things that have been going on in governance, and then get a little bit more about him and his backstory. And let's get to it. All right. Hey there, Llyoyd. How are you doing today?
Hey, John, doing well. How are you?
Good. Dealing with any or jet lag yourself?
Thankfully, we were only a couple hours of time zone difference, so it wasn't so much jet lag as brain lag from the incredible experience and all of the work that went into that. That was the lag.
That's fantastic. So, Llyoyd, I know who you are. We've had some conversations before. You're a very well-known person in the Cardano ecosystem, especially for GM Cardano and the shows that you do that are educational about governance in Cardano and roles that you've taken inside of the ecosystem. But who was Llyoyd before that? So give us a little bit about your background and some of the things that you were doing before getting into the Cardano and the crypto ecosystem, and tell us about that.
Sure. So first off, I'm a husband. My beautiful wife Melanie and I live together. We have 8 kids between us.
8
We came
kids.
together.
That's crazy.
8 kids.
I have
Yeah, we came.
2 and 2 dogs, and I thought that was a lot, right?
Yeah, well, we came together a little later in life. She had 4 and I had 4, and like, what the heck? What can possibly go wrong to, you know, throw 8 kids together in the mix, right? So
That's exciting.
it's exciting. And I did not mind that while we were in Buenos Aires that hashtag Cardano Dad was trending for a minute there. That was pretty cool. I was okay with that. But yeah, so that's sort of my family life. I'm former military, a hat here I'm wearing, happen to be wearing today, but yeah, I'm former military as well. 10th Mountain Division Somalia vet from way back in the day. So a little bit experience there. And then a 30-odd year career doing as an entrepreneur, building businesses, building processes. I was part of the earliest days of the internet, big commercialization of the internet, I should say, where we were building ISPs and data centers and that sort of thing. The land grab then was literally a land grab where you found places where you could stick servers. So that was kind of the early part of my career and stuff. Always at least been IT aligned, information technology aligned at a minimum with every part of my career. Chief technology officer role a few times, things like that. So, and that's a combination of skills that came together, right place, right time to start participating in Cardano and bringing those skills to the Cardano ecosystem.
That's super exciting, and I love that. That's a really great story. So one of the things that is interesting to me is that there have been a lot of progress in governance. And then so I would like for you to tell me a little bit about what you've seen over the time you've been participating, as far as kind of like where we were, some of the changes that have led us up till now, and then where we are.
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, governance, you can go back 2023, very early 2023, January, February timeframe. There was a gathering that was about to happen in Longmont to discuss that first SIP 1694 release. It had come out. There had been a ton of commentary online. And then there was a call to have this one meeting. I always like to joke that I wasn't the first choice to be at that meeting. There was a whole bunch of other people that were supposed to go, and somebody had to cancel. Somebody else had to cancel, and finally, once they got around to the third round of people they wanted to bring in, I'm Cardano's third favorite choice. So they got to that round 3, and they find I guess there's room for Llyoyd to come. So I showed up there, and at that very first kind of gathering of minds, that was more or less public. That was just people from the community gathering folks from IO and, and other parts of the ecosystem to try and, find some consensus. What was good, what was bad, what was right, what was wrong. And we got together and kind of designed how we were going to do all those workshops that led to CIP 1694 workshops. And a lot of us volunteered to either run an in-person workshop and I did a bunch of virtual workshops. I had 5 or 6 virtual workshops in Catalyst after town halls and stuff like that. We used Space Place to talk about it, everywhere we could, everywhere we were, where we were talking, we were kind of talking CIP 1694 for a while there. Then that culminated in Edinburgh. And that was in June or July of 23. Yeah, July. I think it was early July. But I'm a terrible historian right now. I'm like fudging dates.
You're good. You're good.
Somewhere in that range, right?
I'm terrible with dates and timelines. It's like everything kind of happened here. I have a little ADHD, so my perception of time is like it could have been a couple hours ago. It could have been a few months ago.
Exactly.
So I'm not the one, but that's awesome.
But yeah, so that's where we got to CIP 1694, and of course that was where Intersect was announced. And I like to say I was one of those first people in the room, like hammering the form to fill it out. So I don't know what number, exactly I am, but I know I'm one of those first day, signups to Intersect. And, from there, like Intersect needed a lot of work. It was bootstrapped. There was some money that was given to it by CF and Emergo, which we wouldn't have been able to do it without it. Right. And it was given some pretty awesome responsibilities right away, which was, hey, here's the core repositories. Make sure that they're maintained and that the work that needs to be done is continued, through 2024. So, like, okay, here we go. And that work all started, and a bunch of us said, hey, we're seeing some things that aren't where they need to be at Intersect, and we should probably get more involved and figure it out. So we created what was called the community advisory body. And it was just about 15 folks in Cardano that really cared. That's saying that we're the only 15, but we were 15 that cared and were there at the moment. And we kind of all got together and we started making recommendations. We just were writing recommendations into Intersect, and to the credit of the folks that were internal to Intersect, they were saying thank you and actually trying to implement some of the stuff that we were recommending. So they kind of kept us on for a while. And from that, it actually created a whole new committee inside of Intersect called the Intersect Steering Committee, which now does that same work, but it's made up of a head of each of the committees plus five people from the community that are elected to it. So like a really cool, change to the nature of Intersect, to something that was, more, that listened better, that was more responsive to the community, because it was literally owned by the community at that point. So that was a really neat kind of early innovation. And of course, while we're doing that, all this stuff for the Constitution is going on at the same time. All the stuff in the budget.
I recently had the honor of meeting Jose de Gamboa out in Colombia. I actually met him in Bogota, and we had a good conversation about the steering committee on that side, as well as all of these committees and these constitutional workshops and things are going on globally, internationally, simultaneously, right? All these different people across the world coming together around the governance of Cardano, which I think is massive.
It really is. It's interesting. I mean, Jose and I worked together. I was on civics with him. We were in the processes of building civics. He was on the community advisory body with me as well, as we were doing that, that turned that into the steering committee. So it was really cool. I've worked with hand in hand with him for, this whole time. So he's a great guy to talk to and to work with in this stuff. This is what's important about this, is that no one human can grasp this. That's actually the point. That's actually what we're doing here, is that no one human can have their hands on all of this and control all this. No, that should never happen in this environment at all. It's actually that we have to kind of pick where in the stream we want to fit in and give our best work to that part of the stream, rather than try to hold it or control it or honestly even understand all of it, because no one human's ever going to understand all of it. If you ask one human everything on a 747 jet, there isn't one, right? And one human that can tell you everything that happened in an Apollo rocket, There isn't one, right? What we're really building is a system like that, a system that requires humans to have their part in this, in the broader thing, but the sum of the parts makes this greater whole. And that's what we're actually doing here.
I really like that analogy to like the space rockets, because that is really what we're doing here. We are trying to build a system with everybody's input and everybody involved that doesn't fail, right? And that can't fail because you have so many things that are involved and that are thought about, well thought out, in order to ensure that failure isn't what happens, but that there are fail safes for all the things that happen. And I love that. One of the things that has come up here lately, of course, a little bit of drama, but I just want to know if you have a different sort of purview on this. I recently spoke to Sheldon Hunt. Love him. Think he's a great person in the space. Really involved in working with the layer 2 aspect of Cardano being the layer 2 for Bitcoin, and some of this stuff with Bitcoin OS, who I'm speaking to a little bit later today. I want to know, there was the drama about the whistleblower from the Cardano Foundation, which basically, from my perspective, makes me feel that there were the founding entities, which the whole point of Cardano is to be a decentralized system, where you don't have to rely on any one individual to make it happen. But it feels like there were decisions made with some of the founding entities that have created a culture of sort of bureaucracy that probably comes out of a job security kind of perspective, right? Because these people have been doing these things for a long time. Obviously, they feel that they want to be involved for the rest of the time. I was going to say, how do you feel about some of those perspectives and feelings that have been displayed, and this kind of like rift between sort of the direction of Cardano, Emergo, and IOG, and then Cardano Foundation? Of course, without saying anything crazy, but
Nah, it's okay. And look, it is what it is. I actually posted on X about it a little bit. I posted a personal anecdote of something that happened to me in that process, and that's not to really denigrate anyone. It's just to say that, hey, there's some truth to what was there. First of all, I think calling it whistleblowing is a little over the top.
I definitely felt like it was a little over the top. It was an expression of feelings.
Exactly. It was an expression of feelings, and I think valid feelings. Here's, to me, one of the more important things is there was constructive criticism about all three of the founding entities and about Intersect in that whistleblow. There was absolutely constructive feedback. And I actually said that out on X yesterday. It's like, hey, there was actually some really good feedback for the budget process. I'm taking it on board. We're going to use it. Thank you. Appreciate that. Right. And in reality, some of it had already been implemented because of what happened at the Constitutional Convention. So you see what I mean? So it's like, feelings are out there. Everybody has their feelings about this. There's a lot of passion in the space. And that passion is not exclusive to one of the founding entities over the other, or it's not exclusive to the community over the founding entities or anything like that. We all are passionate. We honestly, the amount of pain we've experienced the last 4 years with that long protracted bull market or bear market that we had, right? It was really rough on everybody. Companies lost people. Any investments you might have had probably got blown during that time frame. I know we were strapped down to the absolute bare minimum of cash and people by the time this thing was starting to pick back up. Like, we didn't have anything left, other than our time and what we put in. We didn't have any money left at that point, and it's okay. We're still here because we believe in it. We're passionate about it, right? And now we're in a position where we're going to try to grow back and try to be stronger this time around. And it's exciting to be there. But but that's not exclusive to any one group here. That's everybody that's here. We're all like that. And I did say, you know, I had my own negative things that happened with CF during that, you know, even after the event in Buenos Aires. I was trying to convey what I thought was a perception that I was feeling from the other members in the community, and I was told to go check X and see if they actually said that. I'm like, that's not helpful, right? So communication can improve. And then my ask directly at that point to the CF was, hey, just start earlier in the process. Just co-create with us. If you don't like what we're doing, co-create with us. Be there in the trenches in the early days rather than complaining at the end when we're reaching our goal. That's it. And I think that's fair criticism. I hope it is. I don't feel like that's criticism without an opportunity to go forward. Like criticism just to say you suck. Well, great. What do I do about it? Right. But criticism that has a path forward, I feel like is functional and a good thing. So that's where I hope my criticism was well received. We'll find out. I don't know, but whatever. I hope it was well received. And I've had similar criticisms of IO, and I've watched them take stuff on board and make changes for it. I've had criticisms of Foundation and seen changes made. So that's what to me is important about this. Is it's not that we don't have bad blood from the past. It's not, that's all here. It happened, and therefore we have to deal with it. But how do we deal with it? And I think this is the way to deal with it. I think it's air our grievances, find a constructive path forward, and then move down that path.
One of the things that I kind of see is, so I think Sheldon kind of fit a very interesting role for Emergo as far as being a person that was in the community, in the trenches, was very accessible to all of the people across all mediums of the community and the culture of Cardano on the internet, right? Because everybody's global. And so being that accessible, he was kind of like the translator and the intermediary between culture and then the actual business that is trying to do whatever it is that they're trying to do, right? The development and everything. And so I see that wouldn't necessarily be a position that a tech company would see that it needs. You know what I mean? The actual interpreter. And so I feel like after seeing how well that kind of relationship went on, that's sort of what is needed on the Cardano Foundation side, and probably on the IOG side. I mean, I think on the IOG side, a lot of people kind of see Charles as that. He's in these spaces. He's talking to people in the different parts of the ecosystem. But I feel like that kind of that intermediary, that translator, that interpreter between it's basically, I don't know, kind of like the accounts manager or like the project manager. You need that person that is able to communicate to those that are not in it, in the technical side, to mediate in between those things. And I kind of see that that's maybe what is missing.
It's interesting, and I'll say this: like, go back to the 90s, we used to have a CIO, Chief Information Officer, and a CTO, a Chief Technology Officer. And the CIO was more focused on the actual like tech that was used for the business to do the work, and the technology, not technical, but technology, was the person who it's almost a chief product officer role now. It's closer to what that role is, but back then that's really what the CTO's role was more like understanding the product and how it impacted people. And we've not lost it. We've just migrated from there. That's why we now have a CPO and a CTO and not so much a CIO. I mean, they still exist, but not as heavily. That's not as sought after a position, right? And it's a lot of that is under the CTO position now. So corporate governance has changed over the years, This is, you're pointing out something very important. Like, this is a part, it's a cultural officer. It's a, it's a community officer, something like that, really genuinely understands where we're headed as an ecosystem, and then how where the company's place is within the ecosystem. Like, you're right. It's a valuable skill, and it's okay that corporate governance changes. It's supposed to. It's supposed to adapt over time to the changes in the world, and this is a change in the world. So I think that's good insight, John.
Thank you. I was going to say the other thing that I kind of think about, and this isn't to be critical, especially not of Charles. I love Charles. I think he's amazing. But people in the culture and the community, one of the criticisms that they may have for him at times is, how many times do you use the things that we're building in the ecosystem, right? Because he's very heads down building some of these huge systems, right? So if you're building this rocket, you're probably not testing out how comfortable the seats are all the time. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I kind of feel like that's kind of a similar thing, is that intermediary between the culture and what's going on. So what are the things that you were the most excited about going forward after this constitution has been worked out? Where do you see the biggest sectors of growth in Cardano going forward?
Well, so from a governance perspective, the Constitution was a absolutely critical first step, but now we have to get into what it means to govern, right? You need the governing documents, and then you actually have to figure out the processes to govern. So what does that look like? To me, I think that's budget, obviously. Budget better be important. That's what I'm working on, right? So of course I think it's important, right? But beyond budget, there's also roadmap. Like, where are we going? Charles mentioned that in a couple of his speeches recently. It's like how do we as a community decide what those next eras are, or if we're even going to call them eras? Like, what are the next things we're going to do as a community? Where are we going together? Where are we wayfinding? Where are we pointing toward, so that we know what the next steps are, the next things to develop are? Those two are huge and critical. And then, I do hear the word bureaucracy all the time. Ooh, bureaucracy. Well, you have to have a degree of some form of structure and process. It doesn't mean that you have an unaccountable bureaucrat that can do whatever they want. No, not at all. But it does mean that you do have to have structure and process, because everybody, if you go on the field and everybody agrees to the rules of the game, you can have fun. But if you go on the field and nobody agrees to the rules of the game, somebody gets hurt. And let's avoid getting hurt by having set rules of a game that we can all play together. And that's what the processes should be. So we have to define and build a lot of these. And I think that's going to be, and I think we uncovered the how on that pretty well in this constitution process. Like, we've host workshops across countries, across geographic regions, and across technology regions as well. So that's kind of a new learning we have, is like, we have to represent the ecosystem as it is and the world as it is, and then find consensus by bringing those representatives together and coming up with something that works for us. Because it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be what works for us.
So we're getting close to the end here, but I really wanted to ask this question. I've seen some people have some commentary about how grants basically have been given out in the ecosystem, Catalyst, and how this funding typically works. And I've seen a lot of people interested in the actual treasury instead of giving money to projects for startup, just like that, that instead they basically like seed invest and then have like a way of recovering the investment over time as milestones are hit. Is that something that you see that you all are trying to implement into the budget, or is that kind of a separate animal altogether, right? As far as the budget could just be how you're dividing up where spend is going and not actually the strategy behind spend.
And that's right. The second is correct. The budget is not the budget's job. Not at all. It's not the budget's job to do that. The budget's job is to take the feedback from the committees, from any other MBOs, from any other budgets that need to be placed out in the ecosystem to complete work, that work is that they say they're going to do is done, and that the money that they're receiving is going toward the things that's going toward. You don't ever want the budget committee making the decisions on the how or the why. You only want the budget committee to make decisions that that the money that they are auditing, and that they are, that what happened is what was supposed to happen. That's it. They should never do anything else, because if they do anything more than that, then they have too much power and authority. So as the whole process was designed to give that group no power and authority over how the money was spent, only whether or not the money that was spent went where they said it was supposed to go. Because it's up to the D-reps in the community to say, that's how we want to spend our money. And then it's the job of the budget committee to say, the way that you wanted them to spend the money is how they spent the money. Yes.
Gotcha.
Or no, it didn't. So don't trust them next time.
Yeah. So then it will be within the D-reps that I'll have to speak to the D-reps in order to get that kind of investment type mechanism put into the actual structuring of how our treasury works.
Yes, absolutely. The D-reps are the ultimate decision makers for that. The ADA holders, by proxy, it's the ADA holders, right? Because the old ADA holders, ADA owners delegate to the D-reps, and then they have the right to withhold that. So if they choose to move their ADA somewhere else, then they can, to help guide the decision. So the owners of ADA are the ultimate decision makers, and they're represented by the D-reps.
Interesting. And then, so this is just the quick last question, because it just came to my mind. So with the budget, is there a part of the budget that actually goes to building out technology that is helpful for governance and this, that, and the other, kind of like, because what I'm thinking right now is that when you mint on Yeppel, it says delegate to Yeppel stake pool, right? So you have that option. And I kind of feel like that there should be an SDK that does the same thing for D-reps. And then maybe they offer a handful of their D-reps that they like, but like you can actually pick any of the D-reps. Is that something that the budget would actually contribute towards?
Absolutely. So that's what you do for that case. You'd talk to Cardano Civics Committee, which is it's a committee in Intersect that their remit is good governance and good governance tooling for Cardano. So if you'd want to fund a job like that, you would go to the Civics Committee and ask that tool be created, and then they would go through their processes. If it made sense to add in to the budget request, they would do that, and then there would be a tendering process where a company could be selected to perform that work.
Excellent. All right. Thank you, Llyoyd. This has been a fantastic talk. We should do it again. I have so many things that I would want to talk to you about. We could do it for hours, but you're fantastic. Have an excellent day, and we'll see you around on the next one.
Thanks, John. Appreciate you. Have a great day.
You too.